Music has always been special to me, but for a long time I realized I didn't know what it meant to listen to music. It was something that followed me everywhere in movies, video games, walking down the street in my headphones. Anytime I wanted to feel better or feel anything at all. And over time, music stopped being just something in the background and I started to pay more and more attention to it. I began to notice that music is more than just sound, that learning how to really listen to music can change the way how you experience everything in life. When I was in high school, I was like 16 years old maybe. One of my favorite video games came out, and there was a sentence in it that stayed with me for the following 17 years now. Artistic expression is basic in understanding and enjoying life. I played this game in Spanish where it explicitly says artistic expression. The English version says self expression. And while that's close, the Spanish version just feels a little bit more direct to me. I became open to all kinds of art, to books, painting, pictures, photography, cinema, poetry, and of course, music. The more art I absorbed, the more sense everything seemed to make. Now, music, especially, had always been there for me. I had already felt its impact, the emotions it stirred inside me, the memories it created, but I never knew how to put it into words or why it felt so essential, like sleeping or eating or breathing. And that sentence helped me understand it. Art is essential in enjoying and understanding life. And music was helping me do exactly that. It gave meaning to small moments like sharing a white headphone with a girl I like, listening to Green Day, or riding my bike when I was having a bad day, listening to System of a Dawn on my huge ass Walkman. It also explained why music in movies or video games made me feel so euphoric or anxious or calm or completely heartbroken. I started to see how music or art in general is deeply tied to how we live our daily lives, how we feel about people, how we process stress, how we connect to different stories. Sometimes it even feels like we're not choosing the music. It feels like the music is choosing us, like a companion that knows exactly what to give you all the time. Love songs for heartbreak or joy, punk and metal for anger, orchestral music to feel wonder and fantasy, maybe, piano music when you're feeling melancholic or sad, or even lo-fi music when you just want to chill and relax. Whatever you're feeling, there's something waiting for you in music. Think about a song that reminds you of the first person you liked in school. Does it make you feel nostalgic? Or maybe if you think of that song, did you think you hate it? And not necessarily because it's a bad song, but because it carries something heavier than that. It carries a whole story with it. Why does that happen? Why, when you think of a song, it makes you feel nostalgic about something that happened years ago? Why does it make you feel angry about something that happened years ago? There is one song that every time I hear it, it gives me a sense of safety and peace that no other song does. And it's the opening theme to a show called 31 Minutos, or 31 Minutes if you want to call it in English. I watched that show when I was a kid during a period of time in which I had to live with sort of my guard up and in constant alert. Whether I was at home or outside, things weren't easy. And somehow, that show, and especially its music, always made me feel calm. Even now, like 18 years later, almost 20 years later, anytime I hear the same song, I feel that same sense of relief of when I was a kid. Now, think about music that you listen to in different spaces on the bus, while walking, at school, at work, on the nightclub, the music you listen to through headphones or speakers, alone or with others. You'll probably notice that music changes depending on where you are, who you're with, or what you're feeling at that moment. Our environment, our mood, our relationships shapes what we listen to and what we're trying to feel or release through music. And once you notice how deeply music is printed into everyday life, you don't listen to it the same way as before. When I was around 17, I went to a small music conservatory here in town, and I took my first official music appreciation class. At the time, I didn't know, I had no idea what it meant, what the class was, or why it even mattered. It was a very technical course, all about identifying time signatures, instrumentation, harmony, melody, rhythm, all the components that makes music work. Honestly, I found it very boring, but today I do regret not paying more attention to it. That's not important now, but back then I saw it kind of unnecessary for someone who wants to feel music for what it is. I once heard Eddie Vedder that he loved drawing as a kid or as a teenager, maybe. Once he started to take classes, on the first class he took, he hated it. He hated the aspect of having to learn all these technicalities and basic shapes. He felt like that took away all the joy in drawing. And this music appreciation class was kind of similar to that for me. But growing up, I realized that learning all those basics doesn't necessarily take away the joy in it, but it gives you new ways to experience it. Some of those ideas stay with me whether I wanted them or not. At some point, I couldn't listen to a song the same way before. I had to stop to think about the rhythm and the chords and the melodies or the lyrics to truly understand how all of those individual elements could make something so cohesive. I began asking myself questions like, if this song makes me feel angry, what is it? Is it the percussion, the rhythm? Is it the guitar? If it makes me feel nostalgic or sad, is it the piano? Is it the strings? Or maybe is it the harmony underneath everything? And that's when I understood that music appreciation isn't about naming things correctly or reducing everything to numbers and letters. It's about recognizing how each element carries emotional weight and how together they shape the way a song makes you feel. And I'm not saying that everyone should take music appreciation or music theory classes on a technical level for a song to make you feel something. You don't need to label anything. You don't need to know names or rules or definitions or whatever. It's more like learning to taste food. At first, it's just, oh, it's good or it's bad. I like it, I don't like it. But over time, you start noticing that, you know what, maybe this is a little bit too salty, this is a little bit too sweet, this is too hot, the texture just feels wrong, or maybe you love the texture without needing to know the recipe of how the food was made. You just know what you like and what you don't like. And music works kinda in a similar way. Try paying attention to what makes you feel a certain way. Do the songs that makes you feel nostalgic often have a piano instrument? Is it usually soft, repetitive songs that make you feel that way? You don't need to know why it works in technical terms. It's just enough to notice patterns. Listening to music this way can help you identify emotions you couldn't name before. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning. Artistic expression is basic in understanding and enjoying life. whether those emotions are negative or positive. Understanding them and being aware of them matters because sometimes a sound doesn't just tell you how you feel right now, it tells you how you felt years ago. And this ability for a sound to bring back memories, it's something our brains are wired to do. There's something almost magical in the way our brain connects music to memory. We forget so many things every day. You could have an argument with someone, and in a few days or weeks, you can just forget completely what you were arguing about, but the way you felt during that argument sticks with you. You don't forget that. And when you listen to a song you used to listen as a kid, your brain remembers how you felt as a kid when you listen to that song. It remembers just close enough to make you feel sad or nostalgic, happy, moved, maybe everything all at once. I once heard that our neural connections are constantly changing and arranging themselves in different ways and sort of taking snapshots. Whenever you're in a certain place with certain people listening to certain sounds, the way you feel, your brain captures that exact configuration and takes a snapshot. Now, I'm not a neurologist, but this metaphor made it so much easier to picture what's going on inside of my head. So, when I was a kid listening to a song, watching a TV, playing or practicing guitar or piano, my brain took snapshots of all those moments. Years later, when I hear the same song again, my neurons don't recreate the past perfectly, but they arrange in a very similar way, just close enough to make me feel something. And that closeness is what we feel as nostalgia. Maybe the chest getting a little bit tight, a sense of tranquility, or a bittersweet mix of sadness and joy. This is also why there are songs that you can't just listen to them anymore because they're tied to breakups, to grief, to people who hurt you, to or to moments that still hurt too much. Those snapshots still carry some emotional weight. But even the same thing happens when music becomes an emotional shelter. Think about a song that you played over and over again during a difficult time seeking comfort. That song for me could be the one I talked about, the main theme for the show, 31 Minutos. During a period of time when I was a kid dealing with insomnia and didn't feel safe overall, that song made me feel peace. And even now, after all those years, it still does. And other times, a song that really moved you, that really made you feel really sad or made you feel extreme bliss, sometimes that song just doesn't make us feel anything anymore. Could be just because you're not the same person you were in the past. Maybe the things that either made you feel good or bad are just completely different now. Music does link sound, memory, and emotion, but that doesn't mean we are not going to evolve and change as a person. And that's one of the things what make music so powerful. It doesn't just connect us with our own memories, but it also helps connect with other people too. For the most of human history up to a little over 100 years ago, with the mention of the wax cylinder, I believe it was, music existed only in shared spaces, in celebrations, in gatherings, in rituals, work, mourning. It was not something you would listen to in your own room by yourself, alone. And I'm gonna add a small parenthesis here. It's insane to me that for thousands and thousands of years that humans have always experienced music in groups with other musicians playing live. We got to live in an era where music can be played anywhere at any time with a recording. It obviously has its pros and cons, but still, it's still pretty crazy to me that only up to 100 years ago, music recordings did not exist and we got to experience that. Anyway, this matters because music was always meant to synchronize people together, their movement, their emotions, their attention. But as always, technology keeps advancing and it comes to the point that it changed everything forever. For the first time in history, people started to build a personal relationship with music, listening to it by themselves alone, replaying the same songs in specific moments of their lives. At first, listening to music this way was seen as isolating. Some even believed that doing this alone was antisocial or unhealthy. But fast forward a century later, and we understand that music is one of the most powerful emotional outlets there are, just like any other art. Remember, artistic expression is basic in understanding and enjoying life. This includes music too. But as years flew by, sharing music became meaningful. Because when you share a song with someone, you're not just sharing sounds, you're sharing a mood, you're sharing a memory, a story, a different way to see the world just for a few minutes. I bet that at least one time some of you have listened to a song and said, I don't know how to explain how I feel, but this song does just perfectly. And when you share that song with someone, you are also sharing a story, not just a musical composition. That's why connecting through music feels more intimate than connecting with simple conversation. I love a section I read once in How Music Works. He talks about how the mixtapes we used to make before the streaming era of music was one of the most personal and intimate gifts that someone could give or receive. You would make a carefully curated list of songs that shows who you are. You could decide how playful or romantic or introspective or vulnerable you are based on the songs you choose to share. And gifting this mixtape you made to someone special was like saying, this is me and this is how you will get to know me better. That's amazing. I love that. And I remember this part of the book because it's something I lived. I did this a lot when I was a kid. And now with streaming, it doesn't really happen anymore. It's really not the same to give a mixtape a physical object that you can hold on your hands meant only for you, to receiving a digital link to a Spotify playlist. It's just too bland, to be honest, when you compare both of them. This is how two people can have completely different lives, backgrounds, and still understood when they realize they like the same song or the same artist. Music becomes a shortcut or a bridge to empathy. Because when you share a song with someone, you're also saying, this is what calms me, or this is what hurts me, or this is what gives me hope, without really having to explain that. And even when we listen to music alone by ourselves, it's still something social at its core, because the emotions that music help us to shape are emotions that we are going to bring into relationships later on. Music helps us recognize emotions in ourselves and in others. This is why even in 2026, concerts feel so powerful and unique. Thousands of strangers feeling the same thing at the same time. The old function of music that humans have been experiencing for thousands of years comes back in that moment in live music. Music didn't really stop connecting us when it became private with home recordings, but it definitely developed or taught us new ways to connect through music. Now, as I said before, music appreciation at an emotional level, not a technical level, is not about knowing the chords and the scale and the mode the song is playing. Millions of people don't know any of that, and they still get very moved emotionally when listening to music. Most of us listen to music passively when drawing, when working, when walking down the street. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start appreciating music with intention, you begin to notice when a song has truly entered your life. When you listen to a song and you notice what kind of day you're having, what part of your body reacts first, whether the music calms you or makes you want to move. Learning how to listen to music doesn't mean you have to analyze it or know music theory. It's more like asking, why does this song feel so comforting right now? Why does this other one make me feel so restless? Or why do I keep coming back to this particular sound when I feel this way? When you listen to it like that, music becomes feedback. It reflects your inner state back to you. And the more you listen to it this way, the more you realize that the music you listen to is not random. And the emotions it brings up are not random either. They are patterns, they are needs, they are parts of you asking for attention. And this is where music appreciation becomes a skill. Music helps you develop emotional awareness. That's why it stays through every phase of our lives. Why certain songs became anchors, and why sharing a song could say more about you than an entire paragraph could. So, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's not to analyze music, but to learn to listen closer. Because artistic expression is basic in understanding and enjoying life. And learning how to listen to music might be one of the simplest ways to do just that. If you found this conversation interesting, I'd love for you to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoy this kind of reflections, consider subscribing to the channel. I make videos about art in general and how to live with more intention. Thanks for being here. Keep on keeping on.